Okay, let's call this meeting to order. Moment of silence, please. Okay, comments from the public.
I live on 25th Street, and I know the North Kent City School District has not submitted anything on that renovation yet. But I want to make notice that I am very, very displeased what they're talking about, putting a parking lot on 25th Street from Knox up to the grade school there, that space that's available there. Very, very bad. I guess the police department would have to be involved as far as how they're going to direct traffic if it's allowed. I don't see why and how it would be. But I just want to make my displeasure noted. And trash pickup, bad. You're going to have to see about finding some new company to do that. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Cash, Mr. Cash?
My name's Charles Cash, or Mr. Mayor, council members. My name's Charles Cash. I reside at 408 East 30th Avenue. I just was at the special meeting, and I appreciated Chief Fisher's well thought out, well presented program on certification. I think the city would be remiss if we didn't continue and down that path. And I think some of the benefits, one of the questions was, couldn't we do this ourselves? And that's, I think, a good question. But with the certification, the path is all laid out. Somebody's done all the homework, knows how to get you where you want to get. I think you would get there sooner. One of the other things that was talked about was benefits. I think one of the biggest benefits was missed. That's human life. If they can learn ways that they can respond quicker, better to any situation, whether it be me having a heart attack, an automobile accident, a situation in the rail yard, an emergency at the hospital, if they can save one life in those 5 years, it's worth $70,000, I think. And I think by going through this certification, they would be able to do that and probably save more. So yeah, there's a tax benefit or an insurance benefit to businesses, but the benefit to everybody, visitors, people who reside here, people who work here, if there's an emergency and we can respond faster, that's much better for everybody. The other point I wanted to make is the cities that are certified, Lenexa, Overland Park, Blue Springs, and Lee Summit. All four of those are our competitors. So they're selling certification to the people that are looking for a place to put a business. We are well thought of, and I think we compete with those cities well. But this would take that little carrot that they have that we don't have yet. So those are my humble opinions. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. Anybody else?
Rich Gross, North Kansas City Business Council, and driving in this morning, I noticed the Public Works crew taking down the trees and removing the Christmas ornaments, and I just want to thank the city and the Public Works Department particularly for putting up the trees, maintaining them, and taking them down. We had a beautiful setting for the whole holiday season. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, hearing none. Consent agenda?
I move that the consent agenda be approved as written.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Number 9.
Work order number 14 with Olson Associates Inspections, Taney Mill Construction Administration, Observation and Testing Services. Resolution number 17-002.
Harry,
Thanks, sir. I'll call on the Community Development Director, Sarah Copeland.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. At your last meeting on December 20th, you approved a contract with Clarkson Construction for the construction of our new street in the Armour Road redevelopment area. This work order with Olson and Associates is to provide the city with services through the duration of that construction project. This would include a variety of services, construction administration, observation and testing, as well as construction engineering and plan review. In this work, Olson would act as an extension of our staff to provide us with ongoing oversight and to ensure that the infrastructure is being installed correctly before we accept it. Because this is a variety of services and is different from the other work orders that you've approved to date, we do have Jonathan Hofflander from Olson here tonight, and he was going to give you a brief overview about the scope of services included in this work order.
Jonathan Hofflander with Olson Associates. Sarah did a great job on summarizing the scope of services there, but to expand on them a little more, there's construction, contract administration, construction phase engineering, as well as special inspections, material testing, and construction observations. So it's kind of broken up into 2 components on what we have there. The first being the construction phase administration, construction phase engineering, and the inspections and material testing that has there. In those items and those works that we're also coordinating with the contractor, having monthly, if not on a more frequent basis, meetings with the city to update staff accordingly on the progress of the construction site with the contractor as well. So the 3 of us will be at those meetings. It's all the documentation that goes along with this to document the works that's being constructed out there, not only for the city, but also with MoDOT. So there is a component of this that is on MoDOT right away, and it's the observation and testing. So MoDOT's getting the appropriate product that they need out there as well. And then we're into inspection management meetings, reports, utility coordination, coordinating with the contractor, looking ahead for any issues that may arise in the field, addressing any RFIs that the contractor may have, review of those RFIs and plan interpretation and response, review of change orders, if any do get presented on that, and providing appropriate response and estimates of that work as it continues. Then we also have construction phase observation on there, where we'll have an observer on site to observe the work as it's being constructed. The majority of that time that is associated with that scope is based upon the construction contract and the duration of that contract. There's 270 calendar days in the construction contract, which we estimate. There's 174 working days on that, which include 4 Saturdays or additional weekend work that the contractor may need as that comes along. And so we have time in there for that. Now, as all those hours break down, that's not full-time, having a person out there full-time every day, all day. So with those 174 days, we have budgeted right at a little over 7 hours of work there. So we know on the incoming part of the project, as the contractor's ramping up to speed, there's not a need to have somebody out there full-time all the time. And then as the contractor is ramping down and closing up the work as well, we can be a little more efficient with that time and those hours, and that efficiency is accounted for in this. So if you have any more questions about this, I'd be happy to answer.
Zach?
Couple of quick questions here.
go to my notes here, and I'm not an expert on these contractual and technical items. Can you explain, my first question is, what is on some of the exclusions? I
Yep.
just had a couple of questions on the
Okay.
exclusions. What is a maintenance bond correction? You know what that is? It's under the exclusions.
Right. I just want to make sure I get it in full context here.
And then after you're done with that, I've got another question too, so.
Number one.
I'm not saying it
Okay,
shouldn't be
so
in the-
the maintenance bond correction period, so at the end of this contract, there is a maintenance bond and a correction period that comes along with the constructed works. It's part of the contractor's contract. As items come in for those, we're assuming that all gets lumped together at the very end, and we'll do one maintenance bond correction period check on it. We're not doing a continual observation of the work and responding to work as it comes, as each little individual item pops up through that correction period. And the correction periods generally last for a year following acceptance of the work.
Okay, so it's like something that's not up to our standards, we give them time to fix it, and that's something that's not included into your scope of services at this time.
Correct.
The other question is, it says in here that no time has been included in this fee to estimate for surveying associated with utility relocations, setting property, project control for the contractor prior to construction, yada, yada, yada.
Correct.
Should we maybe, and I don't know if this is something that we need to look at, do we anticipate any surveying need to be done for utilities, and if so, should we budget for that?
The answer is yes on that. That's generally considered construction phase staking and surveying. The contractor has that carried into their price already.
That's included in
And
their bid,
so
okay.
we're just saying, we're not providing it and the city's not paying directly for that.
But the contractor should have that factored into their contract.
Contractor should have that factored into their price already.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Move to approve resolution number 17-002.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, number 10.
Approval of financing plan for the ARRA, resolution number 17-001.
Eric?
Thank you, sir. The master development agreement that the city has with North Kansas City Destination Developers provides that a financing plan would be presented to the city council for your review and approval. This financing plan generally lays out, it's not a commitment to anything specific tonight, but it is, as the Developers Council said today when we were having a meeting on it, sort of a memorandum of understanding that lays out the specific, not in a specific fashion, but in a general fashion, the economic development incentives that will be provided for various components of the work, which will come to you on a component-by-component basis. So it's a significant step to have this before you tonight. And at this point, I'd like to go ahead and call on our financial advisor, Matt Webster of Emeritus, to describe the document further.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Matt Webster with Emeritus. As you may recall, I was last here on this matter back in May when you all adopted the master development agreement. This finance plan was part of that master development agreement, and we've now worked with the developer and city staff to come up with a formal plan, and that's what I want to talk to you about tonight. In your packets and posted on the city's website as part of the package, I provided a memo. I'll briefly step through my memo and then answer any questions. A representative of the developer is also here tonight if you have more specific questions about the project. So just to recap briefly, phase one of the project was to include the construction of a spine road, which is already a requirement of the city's agreements with the jewelry store, and then a hotel with at least 150 rooms and a conference center, a grocery store of at least 35,000 square feet, and an apartment complex of approximately 200 market rate units. There's also a phase 2 of the project, which would include more retail, restaurants, destination type elements. And phase 1 and phase 2 may be developed together, depending on how the schedule works out. In terms of the numbers, the current budget that we've worked with the developer, and again, this is part of the package tonight, and more details are available. I provided kind of a summary in my memo, shows a total budget of approximately $133 million, $134 million. And currently, the suggested public-private split would be about 25% of that capitalized from public financing sources and about 75% from private sources. And the private sources would be developer loans and developer equity. The public sources, I'll talk more about as I move through my presentation. The 25-75 split is a little actually lower in terms of the public participation than the last time we were here, when it was about a third. This may change in the future as the various component developer plans are presented to the city, but certainly not something to be, I think, concerned about at this point, and well within the norms that we see for other projects on both sides of the state line here in the metro area. So in terms of what each component development agreement requires, these are all protections for the city. The developer has to bring to you a guaranteed maximum price contract. They have to show evidence of construction loans and equity, payment of performance bonds, various kinds of insurance. They have to disclose who the component developers are, meet with the staff and consultants and detail all of this, and then each of these component development agreements is brought to you. So these will be occurring in the future. In terms of the incentive financing, which is an important part of this, the incentives were mentioned in the original development agreement. I think we put a little finer point on the incentives, but the major incentives identified by the developer are tax increment financing, which the city has used before for Northgate. The tax increment financing plan will have to be processed through the TIF commission and then brought before the council, so there'll be an additional time for you to look at that. The next element, hotel, motel, transient guest tax, there's to be a hotel on the site as part of the project, along with the conference center. The developer has asked for that hotel tax captured from that hotel be rebated to them to pay for parts of the development. This is frankly a fairly common request today. Anytime you see a lodging component in projects, again, on both sides of the state line, typically developers are looking to utilize part of those taxes for various development components, and I think it's a reasonable request. Again, to the extent that the final plans for each component include the transient guest tax, there'd be further action required of you. The developers asked for the ability to implement a community improvement district sales tax. Again, this is something that we talked about back in May and before. We believe that's reasonable. That's an add-on sales tax on all taxable sales within the development area. And again, those monies would be used for payment of various types of infrastructure on the site. And finally, something they've identified, which is not yet really decided upon, would be a transportation development district sales tax. A transportation development district is as much as it sounds. It's to pay for various transportation improvements, typically streets, sidewalks, parking lots, things like that. The developers would like to have the ability to use that if they so choose. So again, we may come back to you at some point and ask for a transportation development district, either in conjunction with the community improvement district or in place of community improvement district. So I think the takeaway on these incentives is they have not changed dramatically from the last time we were here. None of these incentives I would call unusual or sort of out of the bounds of what we've seen from other projects. Again, you can look at any local community, from a large city like Kansas City, Missouri, to a smaller city like Grandview, for instance, and you see many of these same types of incentives. One part that we didn't talk a whole lot about in May, but which we do have further details on now, is bond financing. I think the best way to look at it is the various types of incentives produce annual payments over time. So in the case of tax increment financing, you get up to 23 years of tax collection, and that is typically the property tax and the sales tax. For a CID, it's typically just the sales tax. Those are annual payments, and developers need money at the beginning of a project to finance the construction. So how do you turn a series of annual payments over time into money that you can spend today? The answer is typically you issue debt or bonds. These bonds are sometimes issued by cities. They're sometimes issued by special taxing authorities. It's a way of what we call capitalizing the future revenue so that it's available for the project. The developer has identified something called an industrial development authority. An industrial development authority is its own political subdivision under Missouri law, and the city could choose to create an IDA. Again, it would be an action of the city council. It's something that many cities, Riverside, Kansas City, Missouri, Platte County, Clay County, many different jurisdictions have industrial development authorities, so there's nothing particularly unusual about it. It simply allows for the issuance of debt, which then capitalizes the various incentives that I mentioned earlier. I think that having an IDA is a good idea for the city. It has some safeguards for the city. It is separate from the city, so that it doesn't implicate your city treasury in any way, which again I think is a big advantage. The other important thing about the bond financing is the developer is not asking for the city to guarantee or otherwise back their debt. In other words, the debt is to be paid from the various tax increments to the extent those tax increments are generated. They go to pay down the debt to the extent that there's a shortfall. That's a risk that the developer has to bear, or the purchaser of the debt that the developer identifies has to bear, not your risk. I think this is something that's quite important, and I believe it's a key safeguard that's always been part of this deal and continues to be. And again, I want to emphasize that that's a typical safeguard. Some cities do directly back debt. Kansas City, Missouri has done it on occasion, but most cities try to protect their treasury from that risk. And finally, there's a series of exhibits to the agreement. Again, the agreement's only about 6 pages, but there's a budget. The budget was produced to show us, show you, sort of what the scope of this is. The budget would be expected to change right up until the time we showed each component development agreement to you as a council. So it's I think it's indicative of where things stand, but it is in no way final. The budget identifies the various components of the project, and then talks about the various costs. It also identifies what types of incentives might be available for paying certain line items. So you have certain costs that could be paid from TIF bonds. You have other costs that could be paid from CID bonds, and you have a third set of costs that could be paid from the lodging tax. This is not something I think you need to be overly concerned about tonight. It's more for the use of the legal review that has to be done as part of any kind of bond financing. I think the important thing is that our review of this shows this budget to be reasonable, we believe, and has enough level of detail that we have some confidence that the developer has not forgotten anything. I do want to emphasize one thing about the budget. The budget does not include the cost of the spine road. The cost of the spine road will be paid by the city, again, as part of prior agreements. So this budget is for the work that's done on the site, exclusive of the spine road. And again, I think the other detail, as I mentioned before, is the sort of the public-private split, which I don't believe is concerning. I've seen projects like this where upwards of 50% of budgets in some cases have been put on the public side of the ledger. So we're well below that. There are other sheets that are attached as part of the package, and those sheets are more detailed. They are a bond payoff schedule, and they are a pro forma. I don't want to spend a lot of time on those tonight, because I don't think they have a lot to do with really understanding where we are today. They were prepared because they're part of a financing plan. They will be modified as part of each component development agreement, and we'll bring that back to you. And at that point, we'll have kind of a final pro forma on which we take action. After tonight, what we would continue to do would be to work with the developer on each of the component development agreements for the various development components. A lot of this ties back to construction schedules, which I'm not going to get into tonight. It's not part of my presentation. But suffice it to say, the progress is being made, and we believe things are headed in the right direction, and that during 2017, the various pieces will begin to come together. With that, I'll answer any questions, and then I'll just offer the developer a moment to say anything he might like to add.
I've got 3 questions on this. First of all, I just want to confirm on the TIF financing, that is property, and it could be, and it is sales tax as well?
Yeah, what they call statutory TIF in Missouri is the incremental property tax, so the property tax before versus the property tax after the improvements are made. The increase there is captured, and then also the sales taxes on the site. And since there are essentially no sales taxes on the site, other than perhaps Burger King at the moment, the increase there would be the new sales tax.
So those new sales tax would go, any new sales tax generated would go back toward the developer then?
Yeah, and again, that's for a 23-year period.
Okay, and then the property, I guess, being transferred to the developer, and that is, did it say in there no cost?
Yes, that has always been the sort of the fundamental element of the deal, is that the property is transferred at no cost, and the developer turns around and has separate transactions on the component development agreement. So the developer may choose to sell the property to the component developers. The proceeds of that sale would then be used to pay for certain elements of the project. Those specific arrangements will come back before you as part of each of the component financing agreements that we bring as each part of the transaction is executed. And those could be one at a time, it could be several together. It just remains to be seen how the schedule plays out.
So that saves the developer the cost of buying the land so that they can get the project going, get people in. Okay.
Right.
And then one last question, and I don't know if you or maybe Sarah can answer this. I saw a couple on there on the component things that you called. One's Flow House and the other is Sunterra.
I'll let the developer address those.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, those were identified as possible tenants, and again, I'm just a little bit outside my scope.
Okay,
But I'll have Rick come up and speak to that.
thank you.
I guess one question I've got, originally, we talked about not making the Spine Road go all the way through, but are we doing that now? Or, I mean, are we gonna take her all the way down to 16th Street?
Well, yes, for a very broad definition of we. That will be work that will be done under the oversight of the developer by their contractor and engineer, but we've been working closely with them on that. That was always contemplated as part of our development agreement with Morotis.
Yeah,
So yes.
yeah, but originally we thought we had 4 years to build it, but now it looks like it allows it to be done a lot quicker.
We do, under that development agreement, have 4 years from the date that they open to do that, but they need to get the road in so that they have access to those other parcels for them to be developed.
Okay.
Matt, could I ask for clarification on one item?
Sure.
Councilmember Clevenger asked about the sales tax. So the increment that goes back to paying debt is 50% of the sales tax increment, correct? I mean, it's a 100%
Yes.
of the property tax, but
Yeah.
there would be some sales tax that we would gain even while having a TIF on the property.
Yes, correct.
Anybody else? Okay,
Okay, with that, I'll just ask Rick Warner, representative of the developer, to come up and he can answer your questions about the specific components.
Good evening. First of all, I want to thank everybody, staff and the elected officials. I have been getting referrals from some of you. And so, Mayor, I think you referred a restaurant idea. At first, people thought, well, this restaurant may not work. If she can deliver what she said she can deliver, it's a really cool concept. And Eric got a call from a hotel company. Again, at first, I thought I had a better hotel company, but this is a North Kansas City hotel company that's headquartered here. And so they're going to build 2 hotel towers. I wanted to announce tonight the brands, but we called the parent, and the parent company says no until everything's approved. You can't announce the brands, but they're high-end brands. It's not like a Quality Inn or Sleep Inn. These are high-end brands. Tomorrow morning in the Kansas City Star, there'll be an article on North Kansas City where the #1 business that when I met with Harrah's that they wanted was a facility like Top Golf. So if you've been to Top Golf at 107th and Knoll, Harrah's thought it would help the casino business, thought it'd help bring people from out of town to North Kansas City. So today we've announced that we have an alternative to Top Golf called Drive that's agreed to be an anchor on our site. So we're excited. We think we've tied down the hotels, but we don't have the final franchise agreements in place. We've gotten several calls referred to us from the city and people we've talked to on the apartments. We've got Drive as a main anchor. Mayor, you referred us one restaurant. We're talking to about a dozen restaurants, and we're going to pick and choose the best restaurants we can get. Flow House is, what I specialize in is to try to bring unique things to development. So this would be the only Drive concept in Kansas City. I believe it's nicer than Top Golf. Flow House, somebody asked about Flow House. It's a restaurant where you surf inside the restaurant. And so these exist around the world. There are none in Kansas City. So my goal would be to bring a restaurant where you surf inside the restaurant to North Kansas City. When I worked on the Legends in Kansas City, Kansas, one of the questions we had was, why would a woman from Johnson County drive past 3 other Talbot stores at Oak Park Mall at 119th Street to come and shop in Wyandotte County? And the answer was, she wouldn't. So the way we got 12 million people to come to Wyandotte County last year was to have unique things that they didn't have anywhere else. So my goal for North Kansas City is to have unique things like surfing restaurants, really cool entertainment venues, that high-end hotel experiences that you don't get anywhere else. That'll be one of a kind, that'll make this development in North Kansas City unique. So I'm here to answer any other questions you've got.
I'm excited myself.
What's Sunterra?
We were approached, as a referral from the city, we were approached by a rehabilitation facility. After you go to the hospital, let's say you're 70 years old and you get a knee replaced, but you have no spouse, you don't have any kids. It was a place to rehab, but it's not a hospital, but it's not quite a hotel. So, but you go there to where they serve meals, you do rehab. Somebody makes sure that they take care of you because you can't go home and take care of yourself just yet. And we're negotiating with them. We've also been approached by a number of doctors that would like to locate on site. As Sarah pushes me to build nicer and nicer and bigger, we may end up with, say, 40,000 square feet of medical office space as opposed to a 10,000 square foot Centera building. But we're keeping all our options open to make it as nice and as a dynamic a development as we can.
As living in a senior complex as I do, that'll be great for the people that I live and associate with every day. If it comes to fruition, you'll have some customers.
You might want to consider putting that rehab center right next to that surfing thing.
Well, actually, if you go online and look at Flow House, you're surfing on a trampoline. It doesn't look like it, but they're shooting water over a trampoline. So when you fall, you actually bounce, and you're only falling about 4 feet. So it's really not that dangerous.
So there's no sharks or anything.
No sharks or anything.
Don't
No
sound like any fun.
Great job.
Okay,
Move to approve resolution 17-001.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, number 11.
Reducing the size of the Hospital Board of Trustees for the North Kansas City Hospital. Bill number 7167, ordinance number 8964.
Eric?
Thank you, sir. This is actually an item that's proposed by the mayor, and it regards the number of members on the North Kansas City Hospital Board of Trustees. Back in 2013, the city council increased the number of members on the Board of Trustees from 11 to 15, but for the last several years, the council has gradually been working to get that membership back down to 11. The current membership, as of right now, is 11. With 6 of those 11 being North Kansas City residents, it is required that a majority of the members of the board be North Kansas City residents. So before you tonight is an ordinance to officially set the number of members on the Hospital Board of Trustees at 11.
First reading up, and it's, I'm sorry.
So this will be the last, we're gonna leave it at 11 and.
Yeah, we're gonna leave it at that.
First reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance repealing ordinance number 8855 and amending section 3 of ordinance number 8685 of the city of North Kansas City, Missouri by reducing the size of the Board of Trustees for the North Kansas City Hospital.
I move that bill number 7167 be placed on second and final reading and pass as ordinance number 8964.
Second.
All roll?
Councilmember Sanders?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember,
Aye.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Steffen?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Kistler?
Yes.
Councilmember Lodahl? Yes. An ordinance repealing ordinance number 8855 and amending section 3 of ordinance number 8685 of the city of North Kansas City, Missouri by reducing the size of the Board of Trustees for the North Kansas City Hospital.
Okay, number 12.
Short-term conditional use permit, father-daughter, 5K.
Eric?
Thank you, sir. Susan Dawes has requested a short-term conditional use permit for a dad and daughter 5K run walk on June 10th, 2017. The route is the same as the annual Parkinson's 5K event, and it's been approved by the police department, and the applicant has requested assistance from the police department to close the routes. Normally, we would have this item on your consent agenda for this kind of short-term conditional use permit, but we did want to make sure that you were aware as you consider the item that, as you may recall, in May of 2015, the City Council voted to limit the number of organized events like this to 4. So in 2016, there were only 3 events we were held. Those were for the North Kansas City School District Education Foundation, for Parkinson's disease, and for the Christmas Light Run. So assuming that those 3 events also apply this year, and including this last one, you would have reached the limit as far as the number that, according to your policy, you would allow. So I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that as you consider this item.
Got a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Number 13.
Approving accounts due and payable by the city through December 30th, 2016. Bill number 7168, ordinance number 8965.
First reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through December 30th, 2016.
I move that bill number 7168 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 8965.
Second.
Call roll.
Councilmember Sanders?
Aye.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Steffen?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Kistler?
Yes.
Councilmember Lodahl? Yes. An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through December 30th, 2016.
Mr. Eric.
Thank you, sir. Have a number of items listed on your agenda under staff comments that are in your packet. One is a report on the Swift Mile Street Festival, the final financial report for that festival. I don't have any additional information to add to the written report. If you have any questions. Secondly, Councilmember Steffen requested some information regarding the cost of Metroflex as a percentage of the total cost of our Kent City Area Transportation Authority contract, which council approved at your last meeting. So a memo is in your packet regarding that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thirdly, have provided our quarterly status of projects and purchases report, which just provides information as to where we are on those various large items in the city budget. And then lastly, just note, Mr. Cash, Charles Cash called me this afternoon and just noted that in that report, in the status report, he hadn't seen a status report regarding the recreation center, design and construction project, and he's right about that. The reason is that was approved late last fiscal year as a budget amendment, so it didn't make it into the budget document, and then it wasn't included in the fiscal year 17 document. That's what we used to put together this report that's in your packet, so that we'd failed to have a report on that. So, but in fact, there is movement on that, and we're right in the middle right now. Just would report to you that the design of the building has been completed by our architect, Insight Design Studio Architects. Project is now out to bid. The bid opening is set for January 19th, and we anticipate having a contract award for construction before you on February 7th. So you'll be hearing about that very shortly. Lastly, I would just note that you do have a special meeting next week on Wednesday, January 11th at 6 p.m. to consider the Harris Charitable Fund allocations, and we'll be providing the list of the applications to you and then get your direction on that at that meeting. And that's all I have. Does anybody else on staff have anything?
What time is that meeting?
That's at 6 p.m., sir?
Is it here?
Yes, sir. That's all I have, sir. Thank you.
No comments.
Oh, okay, I've got, some comments, make them short. First of all, really impressed with Rick Warner and, his development group. I mean, sounds like he's making a lot of great progress. We've been waiting and waiting and trying to get development over there for many years now. Can really see some movement on it. It's really exciting. So hats off to him, hats off to Sarah and community development and them guys working and gals working together, getting that going. Let's see here. Just a reminder about the trash service this week. Again, Monday pickup was today. I believe bulky trash is going to be on Thursday, right? And then Thursday pickups on Friday, Friday pickups on Saturday. We hope. Okay. So we got that. And thank you to Gus Lime Cooler and Kathy for their many years of service on the boards, especially Gus. I mean, that guy's, he's been around for a long time and a good fixture in North Kansas City, and he's dedicated a lot of time to our city. So, you know, he's definitely appreciated. And then just maybe thank you to Steve Roberts for sending out the YouTube link. What's going on with Channel 2? Is he here?
We are still working out some technical issues with
Technical.
Charter Communications on that, so we do hope to have, Stephen, you want to report further?
Oh, there he is, okay. I can hear everything. Nothing against you, just kind of a, you know, like status, kind of like what's going on.
That's okay. There's one piece of, excuse me, I'm kind of losing my voice again. One piece of equipment that connects everything we set up to Time Warner. And the device came in today, and when they turned it on, it was dead in the water. So I'd really hoped we were gonna have it ready, but obviously we're not. So I'm pretty confident that they'll have it replaced and ready to go for the next council meeting.
Okay, cool. That's all I got.
Fred?
I'll wait till my turn. Okay, along with that though, after our last meeting, I went to YouTube and all I could find on there was the very first one we put on there.
I had everything recording to kind of a test YouTube account. They're both on there. And so what I've done for our official launch of this is created a web page or a page on our website. So if you go to nkc.org/live, it's embedded there, and there's also a link. If you click there, it'll take you to our YouTube channel, which will have all of the recorded meetings that we have, in addition to any of the promotional videos and anything else that we load up on there. So.
Okay, thank you.
And we're really trying to push that also for communication. So if you pass out nkc.org/live, we'd really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Speaking of communication, I don't know how we're ever gonna solve the problem to get information out to residents at the last minute type thing, like the trash. I told as many people as I could about the Monday being Tuesday and the Tuesday being Wednesday and all that. But of course, you can't get hold of everybody. And I guess some people just don't know we're on, we have a website, or they don't use it or don't look.
The one thing that I might encourage people to do, and to take any opportunity to do it, is to sign up for one of our e-newsletters. That way, they'll get an email from us. They won't have to make an effort to actually go look on our website. They'll get a message sent directly from our website to them. So I would, to the extent that you can encourage your constituents to sign up for those,
Yeah.
that's one of the best ways I can think of to get people that information. That and if they're on Facebook, we put out a lot of information on Facebook and Twitter. Any other ideas?
Do we know how many
Communication team?
people we even have on email in North Kansas City? Do we have any handle on the number of people that have it available to them?
You mean the number of people who live here who have email?
Yeah, how many
No.
people in Northtown have email? Or how many use Facebook? Those are some things that we probably should figure out a way to find out.
Or some of our older residents don't even have a computer.
Exactly,
I don't know how we'd get the word out.
That's a hard one. If you, that really is one of the best, the ways right now that we can get information out the quickest.
Yeah.
How often people, or whether people use our social media is one of the questions we anticipate asking as part of the citizen survey. But we don't have a number of how many people have an email account.
Right.
I know.
I knew you didn't. I just was asking the question.
I know that on Facebook, there's only about 3 of us that ever like or share. So I just don't know how to do it, because I know everybody had half the people or more had their trash out on the wrong day, but I didn't get no complaints this time. I'm sure that'll come up. But that's all I have on that one. And, is there any scheduled meetings between the school board and the city in the future about their project?
Not at the moment, no, sir. I mean, we had talked about meeting every couple of months or so, but it's been, I think the last meeting was August or September. I can ask, if you're interested, I can see about trying to schedule something.
Well, no, I thought they was gonna say, hey.
Yeah, I thought so too.
And maybe they will. I don't know. Did they have a date that they hoped to start building onto the school?
I know they were talking about this spring.
The last we heard, they hoped to start demolition, I think, in April. But we haven't seen anything more specific in a few months.
Seemed like they ought to get on the ball if it's gonna be April, but, and I think that's all I had for it.
Well, first thing I'd like to ask you, that council meetings will be broadcast on Channel 2 cable, right?
Yes,
What about sound?
the sound is there too.
Yeah, I never get sound on Channel 2,
We don't have anything that plays sound on there now.
but it will be.
Right. What we have now is basically a PowerPoint presentation that's on a loop, so it's just a series of images with no sound attached to it. But no, when we broadcast it, it'll have the sound associated with it.
That's my question.
We may wish they didn't.
I'm a pretty open guy. One thing I just wanted to mention is that at the last council meeting, we approved the KCATA services. And that's why I asked, what did the Metroflex cost for the Metroflex bus? And it's estimated, the best number we can come up with right at this time is $267,735. And what I like to present to everyone is something you could just look at, not that we'd have to do, but just to look at. And I wouldn't want us to spend any money on any studies or anything to go that far. But maybe we could provide our own bus service at a cheaper cost. Now, that would probably entail if you're for it. You know, that's just something I'm throwing out here. If you're all for it, I would assume that it probably would entail at least 2, maybe 3 people that would have to be hired. You'd have to factor in the wages. You'd have to factor in insurance, which I think would be awful expensive. Of course, we're self-insured, or we have insurance. I'm not self-insured, but we already have insurance. The cost of the bus, which, you know, you could take that over time. Whatever, you know, say something costs, I don't know what the bus costs, but say it's $50,000. But if it lasts 5 years, that's $10,000 a year. But that wouldn't account for maintenance, wouldn't count for fuel. So these kind of things would have to be taken into account. And probably we should have a backup. If you do something like that, have a backup of a second vehicle, because if your main vehicle breaks down, what are you going to do? You're out of business. And, you know, this is city of Excelsior Springs, because the KCATA doesn't go out that far. They provide their bus service through their city for something like that. But I just want to, and it may be too expensive. May not be worth it. So I just want to throw it out to everybody as my comment.
It's a good idea, Fred. I mean, I can support it making some type of an investigation in that direction.
We'd be happy to try to look at that. This will take a little bit of time, so
Sure.
it
There's
might
no
be
hurry.
a few months. But you've approved it for this year's contract. But we can work on putting together an analysis and bring that to you here in the next few months sometime. So we'll work on that if that's something everybody's interested in.
That's all I'm asking.
Sure.
Yeah. And last thing I want to say is I hope everyone has a fantastic year 2017.
Mr. Warner came tonight with us. It sounds like this year's going to be really excited for us. Looks like some things are finally going to start happening. They're already throwing dirt down there for the jewelry store, which is great to get to see something finally started on this. Can't wait to see more and more things happening. It's going to be an interesting year. That's all.
Mayor?
Well, I just got to reiterate what Councilmember Farr just said. It is very pleasing to see something finally happening out there on that site. It's been sitting empty for so long, and it's an exciting time right now. So looking forward to seeing what grows up out there. That's it.
I just want to say Happy New Year. 2017 is going to be wonderful.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
That's it.
Well, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. That is-
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.